So the Japanese phrase we're going to be talking about today is筋通しましょうや. Now, this is one of those things where like a normal phrase that exists suddenly goes viral. Obviously, the normal phrase doesn't drop the O and add a ya at the end, but basically, suji tosu is a Japanese phrase which is somewhat contextual, tricky to define for sure, but it's like to proceed in a logical manner, to proceed rationally, to convey everything. I like this definition, which just lists it as making sure that everything is clear to both you and the person that you're interacting with. Basically, the specific construction of this phrase you saw earlier became viral because on June 5th of 2025, this tweet became a huge topic of discussion on the Japanese internet. Basically, this person went on a date with a girl in their university club. After the date, they sent a message saying, hey, it was fun, I'd like to hang out again. And then when not receiving a response, they replied with, look, if you're going to fade out,筋通しましょうや. Or like, as a kind of awkward translation, please state your intent directly rather than just not replying. Now, the person posted this online looking for sympathy, and that was basically kind of a bad idea because this became a huge flashpoint for discourse, most of it highly negative. Indeed, this post went so viral that the whole discussion was featured on Yahoo News, and while Yahoo notes that this became a bit of a flashpoint for discourse over is the guy wrong, is the girl wrong, like should she have actually replied, from what I saw, the vast majority of comments were heavily negative, critiquing the person for their behavior. Indeed, to the extent that the person had to delete their account, which makes this all a little bit hard to talk about, because you can't exactly find quote tweets of a deleted tweet. But through searching for the specific phrase筋通しましょうやaround the date that the tweet was posted, I was able to kind of like enter the ruins and find pieces of the discourse, and the most highly upvoted were all very, very much negative. There are people like this who are noting that actually in their experience, ghosting is more something that men do. So yeah, there is some of that like discourse, but like the two most upvoted tweets from the day that this was posted are both critiquing the poster themselves. The first saying that Sujil Tolsu is just like an awkward phrase, arguing that not even Yakuza use it anymore. And the highest that voted with 14,000 basically says that any man that uses this phrase is not matama, or like upstanding, proper, good. Once 2 or 3 days passed then, things got even worse for the poster. They received the kind of abusive nickname of Sujiniki, ended up having to leave their group, which people on the internet found funny, to the tune of 40,000 plus likes, kind of cruelly, ironically noting that the person is now fading out of their group despite critiquing the girl for fading out. And look, I gotta say, the person's name here is easy to find as this tweet is very, very famous, although I have censored it in my post. But this is kind of, awful. Like, I do agree that the post they made was pretty cringe, but the person received consequences that go far beyond what just being awkward is, right? Let he who has not been an awkward 20-year-old cast the first sarcastic retweet. So obviously don't look for information about this person and find it. They've suffered enough for their two mistakes of posting something awkward and then posting that on the internet thinking it would get them sympathy. But anyway, these critiques built up and built up and up until you found people like this who got 90,000 plus likes providing advice. And I guess it is advice, although it's very, very sarcastic and kind of cruel in the way that certain sectors of the internet like to give advice. But basically saying that the emojis that they used initially were cringe. The phrasing of if it's not iya or unpleasant for you is kind of servile and not really kind of thing you say if you want to get another date. Noting that Madade Kakeo is not like an actual plan for hanging out, and then describing Suji Toshimashouya as something deserving of the death penalty. So again, I'm sure that somewhere in this there were people defending the person, but the vast majority of the Japanese internet said you really shouldn't have sent that message and you shouldn't have posted that on the internet. Overall, though, this led to a boom in the use of Suji Toshimashouya as kind of a buzzword, with two real uses that appeared. First came up as just something that you do now whenever you want to complain about something. For instance, this person got 40,000 plus likes, making the joke that I'm going to start using this when somebody takes one of my fries without permission. But other people have just used it on the internet to kind of complain, even if in some cases it's unclear who they would actually, Suji Otosu with. Here, this person uses the phrase to complain about a job application which never got back to them, which I guess fits within the original use. As does this person here complaining about men who don't appreciate the effort that goes into making a real dinner, but then complain about when a simple dinner is made. So yeah, there's a communication problem. But here, someone's just using it to complain about the difference between the tofu they got and the tofu they ordered, which I guess there's a miscommunication between them and the menu or the restaurant, but there's not really a clear conversation partner here. Or this person who's complaining about lesbians who call their girlfriend Karashi for what they call no particular reason. They're just kind of finishing their complaint with this phrase. Or here, when somebody notes that they got these collaboration items between Shaun the Sheep and a Japanese band called Hitsuji Bungaku, which I'm shocked that this collaboration exists, but I guess it makes sense. Noting frustration that people that ordered these online before they were sold in person got theirs after the first sales of these in person, and saying that that's kind of unfair. But again, who they're actually looking for communication with, I guess maybe from the vendor, from the band, is somewhat unclear. They're just complaining and using this phrase because this is the phrase you now use when you complain. The Yahoo article that I showed earlier also notes that people have been doing this as kind of a joke in messaging. So for instance, they'll send someone a message and then before the person can even reply, they'll put the you're gonna fade out Sujitoshi thing. The prototypical example they give is sending a message good night, which I guess is kind of funny, but I can't find evidence of that on Twitter because, why would you text Twitter goodnight? But this whole thing went viral enough that it was picked up by like major Japanese accounts. Gudetama, for instance, used it, making a joke about Yu Suji, right? So like beef tenderloin, beef sinew, basically food that you might put an egg on. And this kind of like joking with the phrase also became a thing, like this person noting that if you're going to do needlework, you need to pull through the thread. So ito tosu instead of suji. Or this person here who basically does a parody of like the press 1 for English kind of thing you get on the telephone menus, but referencing the phrase. And indeed, one of the various buzzword surveys out there listed it as number 6, so showing, again, how popular this got. All in all, I think this phrase is kind of unfortunate in terms of its origin. Like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, this kind of awkward messaging would have resulted in maybe some damaged friendships and like an awkward club situation. Hopefully the person learns a small lesson, kind of grows and goes on. They certainly didn't deserve to get bullied to the extent that like they had to delete their account. But if you've seen it out there, that's kind of why. And certainly it's still seeing high use as the time of this video. In a few years, will this survive? I doubt it. I don't think it'll be a reference that a lot of people get. So if you use this in, 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, make sure that you tosu the suji to whoever you're talking to make sure that they get the joke as well. And with that, it's time for me to fade out.